Hi everybody, this is Mike and welcome back to my Pathways channel. And as you probably know, on this channel I try to record and post videos of messages that I would have given at my church. Usually in the recent past, maybe just the past Sunday. I think this one goes back a little bit, but I hope that it'll work for you. Well, every few years, Hollywood releases a new Ghostbusters film. The first one I think appeared in 1984, and there's a fairly fresh one out right about now. And in those films, a group of paranormal, researchers and inventors, they battle dangerous ghosts and monsters. Ghostbusters. If someone discovers they've got a ghost in the attic or the business office, they call the Ghostbusters, and a crew will arrive in their big converted ambulance. The car is equipped with flashing lights and other gadgets, and the Ghostbuster team has some very cool gadgets, some good secret weapons. One of them is a box that captures ghosts. With their ray guns, the Ghostbusters will draw the ghost into this special container about the size of a shoebox, and once the ghost is inside of it, the box snaps shut, and all is well. At least until you have to dispose of the ghost somewhere. Well, probably you remember one of the lines from the movies. Who are you going to call? Who are you going to call when a ghost is haunting your grandmother's house or your high school? Now, I want to leave the movie behind and just consider that question. Who are you going to call? I think it's a very important question, and here's why I think it's an important question. Life is, in many respects, struggle. As one fairly popular YouTube influencer, Jordan Peterson, likes to say, life is essentially suffering. And out of that struggle, you want to live your life, and you want to live it well. You might be a young person in high school, or you might be the parents of children. You might feel angry about some things, or you might feel stressed or anxious from time to time. You wonder what the future will bring, and you wonder how you're going to deal with the past. Relationships between you and your friends may be hot one day, cold the next. You might find yourself with an addiction or other mental health issue. And then there's also the fact that our present life is not permanent. We will all die. They say that nothing is certain except death and taxes. And it turns out there's ways to avoid paying taxes. You can invest your money in a business or in your local church. You can avoid paying taxes, but there's no way to avoid death. We all have a life to live through the good times and the bad. And how are you going to keep it together? How are you going to live a meaningful life when there are so many things going on that are sources of pain and even meaninglessness? To what or to whom will you turn if you are going to live well? Who you're going to call? Well, this was a question that the Israelites in Exodus chapter 20, Exodus, the second book of the Bible, chapter 20, a question that the Israelites faced. At one time, this is when we're catching up to them in Exodus 20, at one time the Israelites are camped at Mount Sinai in the Arabian Peninsula. I think that's the right term. And who were they going to call if they, first of all, wanted to survive at all? And if they did survive, how are they going to live a good life? So I want to reflect a little bit on the situation of the Israelites that we find them in Exodus 20. And Exodus 19 sets the stage. Thunder, lightning, something like the blast, the sound of a blast of a trumpet, fire and smoke, the ground trembling, rocks shattering. The people are waiting for God to meet them. And he's at Mount Sinai, and the people are gathered around at the base of the mountain. Well, how did they get there? A little bit of background. Up till the weeks that they camped at Mount Sinai, life had been no walk in the park for these folks. They'd been slaves in Egypt, to work early and late to sleep most every day, I imagine. Plenty of harsh treatment, back-breaking work for many, punishment if any slave driver thought you were slacking off, an early death probably if you were male, and in your mind, constant bitterness toward the Egyptians who had used you and your people like farm animals. Now, something happened to change all that. And what had happened was this, that God sent Moses to lead the people. Moses presented a bold request to the ruler of Egypt. God says, "Let my people go." The ruler, called Pharaoh, went back and forth. Over a period of time, he would say yes, and then no, and then change his mind, and then change it again. God sent 10 plagues, 10 punishments, trying to get the Pharaoh to change his mind permanently and to release his people. Pharaoh grew stubborn and hard-hearted, but finally he let the people go. However, true to character, he changed his mind once more. And by this time, I think God had had enough of the scheming Pharaoh and his army. God destroyed his army, and he brought the people, the Israelites, free through the Red Sea. So that in a nutshell is what happened and how it is that the people arrived free from the Egyptian slave masters. They arrived in the desert. They arrived at Mount Sinai. They're gathered there at the mountain, and it's here that God is going to give them their own laws so that they can live a good life. The nations around them had their laws, and now God was giving to his people laws of their own so they could set up their nation. And the very first law answers the question, who are you going to call? Who's going to be our help at all times and in all circumstances? So these laws open up, the 10 Commandments open up with these momentous words. Remember what happened. God said, "I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Remember and never forget. Call on me. Turn to me if you want to live well." And then the very first law, commandment number 1, you shall have no other gods before me. Call on me. Now let's think about this phrase for a minute. No other gods. What did that mean for the Israelite people? Well, it was a challenge for them. In the days that God gave the 10 Commandments and many other commandments there at Mount Sinai, in those days that he gave all that to the Israelites, there were many gods who promised happiness of one kind or another. Warlords would go to their priests and ask if they were going to be successful in this or that battle or this or that campaign. Villagers would make sacrifices to their own god, the local god, so that the god would provide them with a good harvest. The priests of the local god would lead ceremonies so that the people would receive from their god plentiful crops. And so people might wonder, which god is going to give me what I need to be happy? Well, it's going to be the god of the whatever locality you're in. Which God is going to make me prosperous, keep me safe from outside threats, give me a large family? Which God is going to give me what me and my nation need to live well? It's the God of the particular region. So God begins with this, remember that I'm the one who's rescued you. Don't fall for any of the regional gods of Egypt or the Sinai desert or of the people living in the promised land, Canaan, where you are going. I, God, have rescued you. You are my people. Remember all I've done, and remember that I am the one who's got a good future for you. Stay with me. Call on me, the living and the true God, the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God who delivered you from your slave masters in the cruel land of Egypt. Call on me, have no other gods. Well, this command deeply impacted the people, and over the course of centuries, they were sometimes good at following this command, often not. And their story, the story of the people, is in many ways a very tragic story. But I want to fast forward to the time of Jesus, because this command deeply impacted Jesus. Matthew 22. Once the religious leaders asked Jesus, "What is the greatest commandment?" His reply, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. This is the first and greatest commandment." Jesus is quoting from Deuteronomy chapter 6. So, have no other gods, Exodus 20, and Deuteronomy 6, worship, love the true God with your whole being. These things are cut from the same cloth. There is one God for the people. Walk with him, love him, look to him. No other gods, no beings of any kind or things may stand in the place where God belongs. He is the Lord, and there's no other. So of course, love him with your whole being. This is Jesus's take on this whole issue. It's no wonder then that Jesus taught in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 6, and 7, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all other things will be added to you. Jesus says that in Matthew chapter 6, Sermon on the Mount. Worship God, live for him, seek his righteousness. In other words, put into practice what Jesus taught in the Sermon on the Mount. This is what it means to seek the righteousness of the one true God, to put into practice what Jesus teaches in the Sermon on the Mount. Things I've often spoken about, and things which draw explicitly on the Ten Commandments and other parts of the Old Testament. So Jesus taught, live at peace with your neighbors. Guard your marriages and your relationships from sin. Be truthful. Don't judge and carry grudges, but have a forgiving heart for everyone. Be generous with your possessions. Pray and ask God for all you need. In the end, he is the source of all blessing. Call on God. He will provide for every situation, friend. He is the Lord. There's no one like him. In all your difficulties, in every circumstance, call on God.